Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome back, everyone. I'm here today with Monika Becker, and she is the founder of Clear Directions Coaching, a leadership coach, a trained Dalian Method Facilitator. She is passionate and supports her clients in developing true joy, great freedom, and deep satisfaction in their professional and personal realms. Having experienced in her own painful struggles and liberating transformations, Monika helps her clients resolve their internal and external challenges so that they too may live with abundance, confidence, self-responsibility, purpose, and joy. Welcome to the show, Monika. That's a lot of words. So how did you get to where you are?
Well, I guess I pointed a little bit to that in that, yes, I did have my own painful struggles and liberating transformations. And that what that means in more practical and down-to-earth terms means that I was struggling for quite some time with what I felt or who I felt I was from the inside, but who I thought I was expected to be on the outside. And some of those expectations were coming from myself, right? So I had imposed some limitations and expectations and shoulds and shouldn'ts on myself, which created an internal conflict and therefore struggle in my life. And I had to work, or I chose to work my way out of those struggles and have liberated myself in that way that I'm now more confident in being who I am and showing that to the world as authentically as I can. And with that came a lot of freedom and ease and way more joy and creativity into my life. And that's what my work is mostly about, to help other people free themselves of those struggles as well, so that they too can live more freely and joyfully and actually in alignment with who they really are. So that's kind of like my journey in a very short sentence or two, and what my work is all about.
Very cool, and a lot of people do need, the help, and they also need to know that, hey, because you went through it yourself, that means that they can do it, and you can guide them, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because I've walked on that path myself. I can relate to the pain and the struggles that are involved with, first of all, finding out who we truly are, right, and what matters to us. Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes we are not necessarily encouraged in our upbringing to actually speak up and to care about what we think, right? So that's a struggle that many of us, I think, are dealing with, and I've been in that same spot, so I can relate quite well to the struggles and frustrations that come along with actually carving out our unique and very personal path for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, one of the jokes around here is that, hey, yeah, I too survived my childhood and came out to be a person, right?
Yeah, for sure. And there's so many lessons in our childhood, right? Even if it hasn't all been good, but there's much to learn from it, for sure.
Yeah, is that good or bad thing more of a point of view than it is? There's true good or true bad. It's just if you maybe twist it half a turn, that that's a totally different way of looking at it, and that's can be a positive experience instead of a negative one.
You mean our childhood? Sorry.
Any experience that we have, if we give it half a twist, and look at it from a different point of view, can most things be considered to be more of a positive than a negative, or just something that just happened?
And it's a really good question, and there are probably a couple of different points that I could mention. I think we are so used to labeling our experiences and labeling ourselves and other people that sometimes we can really get stuck in calling something good or bad, whereas in essence there probably is always a good or a bad side, or there are two sides to everything, right? So ideally, down the road, whenever we are ready in our unique journey of development, then maybe we come to a place where we can just look at things for what they are. They just are. They are neither good nor bad, but we can just take them as an experience without the need to label them. Right? And that applies to people as well. Right? So I think with our labeling and our tendency to calling things good or bad, or positive and negative and enjoyable or not, it doesn't necessarily always serve us, right? Because we take away the other side that is also part of that same experience or person, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. So anyway, so you have 5 tips to get us unstuck and help us live an inspired life, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So, why don't we get started on that?
Sounds like a good plan. Yeah, so and of course there are probably many more things that people can do, but I've kind of narrowed it down to 5. I think 5 is a good number. You can count them on your hand. And so the number 1 is, so if you feel frustrated and stuck in life, what I can suggest for you to do is actually to choose something uplifting and energizing and engage in that activity regularly. And it doesn't have to be anything big. It could be something like listen to an interesting podcast or read a book that you find enjoyable, or at least a few pages every day, or calling your friend to engage in a heart-to-heart conversation, or maybe doing 10 or 15 minutes of laughter yoga. Right? But something that uplifts you and that gets your positive energy moving and brings you some joy can help you to actually get your energy and some moving and some momentum in a more positive direction again, or at least to get moving again. Right? So even in the darkest time, I think there's still something positive that when we look for it, we are able to find it and engage in it so that we do get a little bit of momentum and movement forward again to get us unstuck.
Yeah. Well,
so that was my first tip. Sorry, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, I think sometimes people get overwhelmed. They think that they have to do a multitude of things, and you're just saying just pick one thing, right? Just to get started, right?
Exactly. One thing, and even if it's just 10, 15 minutes a day, but if you do it regularly, then you will notice a difference, even if it's not noticeable immediately. But by having that persistence of engaging in something positive and something uplifting every day for a little bit of time, it will help you shift your mindset and gain some energy and momentum forward out of that feeling stuck and feeling not able to move, right? So it definitely starts in small little baby steps.
Okay, great. Tip number 2, please.
Yeah, tip number 2, then it's a little bit more involved and probably some deeper work involved as well, which is for you to actually figure out what really matters in your life. And what I mean by that is, it's like when we look at our core values and our guiding principles that are essential to us in order to live a life that is fulfilling and meaningful to us, it provides us with a foundation on which we can build our life. So what I mean with core values is, for example, if it is essential for you and you cannot imagine a life without fun and laughter, then fun and laughter would be a core value to you, right? Or maybe you appreciate self-development and personal growth, right? We all have different things that matter to us. And again, we may not always have been encouraged to actually figure out what those aspects are in our life. But when we do engage in that kind of an exploration, we will gain some clarity and some solidity and strength from the inside out that will again help us to move forward, and not only move forward, but actually move in a direction that is suited to who we are, right, or to who you are in that case, right? So that you can get really clear on, yes, that thing is so important for me that I know that whatever I do going forward will have to be in alignment with that particular attribute, like laughter, joy, contribution, self-development, whatever it may be that is important to you.
Yeah.
So the second aspect to that also is to engage in the question like, so what is my life all about, right? So that we get a sense of purpose and direction, which again will help us to have some clarity of in which direction we want to use our energy, right? And to be involved in something that is deeply meaningful to us.
Wow. So we're actually figuring out the fundamentals and the foundation of what our purpose in value in life is, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Right. And those things are not easily explored in just one sitting, right? So that's a longer exploration and internal discussion, or maybe some contemplations that you may want to have with your friends or professional, right? That can guide you and also be a sounding board for you and give you some feedback on what they hear or what they don't hear that you are saying or not saying. Right. But that kind of inner clarity and sense of direction can be so important if we want to move forward in our life in a way that is aligned with who we really are. Right? And I also want to say one more thing about purpose. There is probably two different flavors of purpose. One is the purpose that we can figure out in our mind and our heart. It's a little bit like probably more on the intellectual side. But then there's also the purpose that life has for us, which is more probably coming from our connection to the universe and our spiritual side. And that purpose that comes more from our connection to the universe is more revealed to us. We can't necessarily grasp that with our mind or figure it out. It's something that is revealed to us and kind of like granted to us at some point in time whenever life is ready to give it to us.
Mm-hmm. Good. So what would the next step be in this?
Yeah, so another step is for us to gain momentum and getting unstuck and more inspired again. It may be really helpful for us to say goodbye to habits, possessions, and people that bog us down. Right? Because sometimes that can be really sucking our energy when we have unhealthy habits or people in our life that are not really supportive of us and that are not helpful in giving us some strength or support in moving forward. Right? Even if it's not easy to do, shedding some habits, possessions, and people that are more like energy, that are sucking energy out of our life, can really free us up and free up our energy in order to move, again, to gain some momentum and move forward.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that we keep the things around us to help. So we say grease the wheels and keep the tires on firm ground, so we keep moving forward, right?
Yeah, and it also, like, if you're familiar with Marie Kondo, right? Like, she is the queen of decluttering. What she says, like, whenever you look at your belongings in your house, you take each individual item in your hand and you look at it, does it bring me joy or not? It's similar to that. Like, you really take an inventory of your habits, your possessions, and people in your life, and look at them and ask yourself sincerely and honestly, like, is this piece of furniture, this material thing that I have, or my habit, or the person that I'm thinking about, adding energy to my life and supporting me in my life and bringing me joy, right? So it kind of it's from that angle to really take inventory and look at our habits, possessions, and people in our life to decide as to whether we want to still have them in our life and engage with them, right? And that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, that makes sense. So where will we go from there? Okay, so we have our core values, we have our purpose, we have the things that keeps just to gets our blood going, and we've got our habits and the people and possessions that keep us moving forward. So where will we go from there?
Yeah. So another point that I thought would be valuable to mention is that going all of this path by ourselves is not necessarily easy. So one thing you may want to consider is actually getting yourself some support, whether that is a trusted friend or a beloved family member or a professional. It doesn't matter, as long as you get yourself some support so that you can have somebody who is a sounding board, somebody who has your best interest at heart and offers you a fresh perspective or maybe some accountability, right? Because and we're not necessarily meant to do all of this figuring out by ourselves. Like, I'm not sure about you, but for me, it's always so helpful to get somebody else's perspective, right? Or somebody who holds me accountable or celebrates my successes with me, right?
Yeah.
So you may want to consider that, because it's nothing wrong about not being able to doing it all by yourself, which I thought for the most longest time, right? It's actually very human and very helpful to get yourself some support.
Yeah, well, I know for myself, I have a series of friends and professionals around me, coaches like yourself, that help keep me moving and saying, well, you know, Michael, should you have done that one, or should you have done this one? It's like, you don't sit there and beat yourself up about it, but keep moving forward through this, right? So.
Yeah, and it's tricky, because our mind can be our greatest friend, but also our greatest enemy, right? We can talk ourselves out of accountability or talk ourselves into feeling small and useless, right? So it's very helpful when we have some outside perspective that sheds a different light on the things we do or don't do.
Yeah. Okay, so what would number 5 be?
Yeah, so I thought about that for some time, which other tip I wanted to include. And I think the one tool that has helped me a lot in my own personal development journey and somehow offers almost all of the other 4 things in one is a powerful self-help tool called the self-healing Dalian Method, of which I'm a trained facilitator. Mm-hmm. And what that particular tool does, it helps us actually to bring to the surface the root causes of our physical and psychological pains and struggles, rather than just trying to treat the symptoms on the surface. So it helps us to connect with those limiting beliefs, our negative emotions, and lots of thoughts that we have repressed over our lifetime So it helps us to identify those thoughts and energies and emotions and release them so that we then can actually get in touch again with who we really are and develop that joy and the confidence and trust in ourselves again and gain that sense of clarity that I mentioned before, but from a place of that is informed by our heart and our soul and not just by our mind, right? Mm-hmm. So I found that work with the Dalian Method, like I used it in particular when I hit an identity crisis a few years back. It really helped me to strip off all those layers of shame and guilt, of blaming myself, of judging myself and others, so that it helped me to dig out my true self again, which had always been there, but it just had been covered up by so many limiting beliefs and expectations that I had put on myself, right? And I assume we all do that, right? Because that's what we'll take on over life, right? Like the limiting belief, I'm not enough and I'm a loser, whatever it may be, right? So it really helps us free us from those blocked energies and then move into our joy and creativity and freedom and eventually be able to fully embrace and share our gifts and contribution, which is such a beautiful place to live from, right? And in the end, I would assume that all of us are seeking that sort of happiness and ability to express ourselves truly.
Yeah.
Right. So I find that particular tool super helpful, and it in some ways it helps us to give us that support, because it is a self-healing method. So you can do it by yourself. You're not dependent on a facilitator, just like myself. But there's a home practice set that you can just purchase at a very reasonable price, and then just practice with this method by yourself. Right? And that's what I find so empowering, that you can take your own health and healing into your own hands.
Yeah, it's. I will always advocate that it's important to work with a professional like yourself, but it's also important to know that professional is a guide, and it's not a crutch or somebody that you can actually stand on your own, and you're the one who's actually doing the work. And it sounds like this Dalian method, it's really helps facilitate that sort of feeling, right?
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it any better. It's like the people that are trained as facilitators, they always encourage you and strengthen you to go back to you. Like they're not giving you any advice or telling you what you have to do. They always encourage you to go back to your own intelligence and wisdom, which you have inside yourself. It may just be the case that you're not aware of it, but that's what this method helps you to become aware of your inner knowing and the guidance that you have within yourself, and that's what the facilitator helps you get access to. Right? And the role of a facilitator, too, in the Dalian method work is to support you in going deeper in those moments where if you were to work by yourself, you might possibly shy away from feeling the emotion that's coming up. But the facilitator that sees that will encourage you to actually feel the emotion and express it so that you can release it for good. Yeah. Right? So that's what the benefit of working with a facilitator is, that they can make sure you work with the method properly and to the deepest level possible so that you can get the most value out of it.
Right. So, some of which you said there to deal with the emotion. Don't we have a tendency when we're left to completely our own devices that if something doesn't look comfortable, we shy away from it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that is the danger, if I want to call it that, when people work by themselves, right? Because, and me included, right? Like it's whatever we feels uncomfortable, we shy away from it, as you said, right? Rather than actually working through it, right? Because our way out of the emotion is actually through the emotion, right? And I'm not sure about you, but for me, what I've learned, and I'm still learning it to go even to a deeper level, is that actually the emotions that I was most afraid of, ones that I actually allowed myself to feel them, they actually went away relatively quickly, and it wasn't that bad of an experience. Quite the opposite. Like coming out at the other end, it actually felt really, 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 really liberating. So that now I'm having more courage when I come to that point, that decision point as to how far do I go, that I actually allow myself to feel the emotions more, because I know at the end I will feel so much better for it.
Yeah. I know for myself that maybe if we were to compare it to a pool, right? I might be able to step into the shallow end, and maybe I could get to where the feeling would come up to, say, my waist or something like that. But without help, it's like getting to the point where that emotion or exploring that experience and re-examining that experience to where I'm in over my head again. Without help, I wouldn't go there, you know?
Right.
But I know with help and guidance that person can get me to that point where it would be definitely back over my head again, and help me get to the other side of it, of that pool. Where
exactly,
because I don't have to worry about the fear of the drowning, shall we say, right? So
and you know what, you're bringing up a really good point, and that I also would like to highlight, which is that the person, like the client in my case, is always in charge. Right? I can make a suggestion, I can encourage them, and if they are not quite ready to go any step further or deeper, that's fine. Right? In the end, we need to honor wherever everybody is and how willing they are to go in the process, and how deep they are willing to go. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Right? So there's never going to be any force applied or making you feel bad if you don't go any further. No, like you are always a choice in saying, okay, well, this feels okay for today. I think I've had enough, right? In regards to the depth.
Well, as long as I've known you, you've always been the gentle guide, and the type of guide that people don't realize that. Until you've got them almost all the way across, that they realize is like, oh, I actually went through it. How did that happen? It's like, and I've always known you to be that type of a person and that type of a guide. So. So I'm sure that you've helped so many people that way, you know?
I sure hope so.
So with that, we're starting to run out of time. So what's the best way for people to find you and start working with you as a facilitator in the Dalian Method? Clear directions, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, and thanks for asking that question. So the easiest way for you, if you wanted to reach out and even just have an initial conversation, there's no obligation to ever work with me. So the easiest way to find me is on my website, which is Clear Directions, that's the plural, and that's all in one word, cleardirections.ca. So that's the easiest way. There's a contact tab, and there's also under coaching a tab where you can apply for a complimentary clarity session. And either way, just reach out if you have any follow-up questions to this interview, or you want to just have an initial chat. That's all good. There's no obligation, as I said, to ever work with me, though I, of course, would love to explore if there is a fit for both of us to work together, so that, I can support you in achieving whatever it is that you would like to achieve for yourself.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. And I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in and clicking on this particular podcast. So, again, until next time, do connect
Yeah,
with
thanks for-
Monika and at cleardirections.ca. Okay.
Thanks so much for having me, Michael.
All right. We're going to stop the recordings. Has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.